Continuing with today's calendar, turning to page 23. Next up is Delegate Keems, House Bill 1884. There's a bill to require the Director of the Department of Corrections to review and revise the department's visitation policies concerning visitors at state correctional facilities wearing of tampons or menstrual cups. The bill was reported for committee on militia, police, and public safety with an amendment nature as substitute.
Doug from Fairfax, Delegate King.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, let me move the committee substitute to start.
Shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All those in favor say aye.
Mr. Speaker.
If y'all don't mind hitting your button. Delegate Price.
Parliamentary inquiry.
Delegate has the floor.
If I would like to speak to the substitute but agree with the underlying bill, when would be the appropriate time to speak?
I would say if you want to speak to the substitute.
Yes, sir.
You need to speak to the substitute right now.
Okay, Mr. Speaker, speaking to the substitute.
Delegate has the floor.
I ask this body to indulge me for a moment, as the majority of this body has no direct knowledge of the underlying subject. In September of 2018, to the dismay and disgust of many lawmakers and citizens, the Department of Corrections issued a ban on any visitors wearing tampons and menstrual cups during the time of their visit. And there was a ton of pushback, so much so that the Secretary pulled it prior to implementation. In response, and I believe in good faith, the patron of this bill wanted to make sure that we all knew what the visitation policy is and what its implementation would look like. As he stated, as I paraphrase, let us not discriminate against the women who are visiting, and let us make sure we are treating them with dignity and the respect they deserve. The original language of HB 1884 directed the department to review their policy on visitation by women wearing tampons and menstrual cups at state correctional facilities, to revise such policies to allow them to have visits. During subcommittee testimony, Mr. Speaker, a story was read that recounted an incident when a female visitor was asked to take out the old tampon in front of an officer and replace it with a state-issued tampon. The testimony called it inhumane treatment, Mr. Speaker, against an innocent, free person. The original bill language would have allowed for the department to get to a better solution beyond discriminating policies against women. But then the substitute that was brought forth before the full committee, it did just the opposite, in my opinion, and when the original bill's intentions were, and actually it is inhumane, and Mr. Speaker, I have some concerns. Based on the testimony of the 54,318 visitors reporting to have visited all of our state facilities since October 27th, there were 231 canine alerts and 24 body scan alerts. Mr. Speaker, that is 0.47% of visitors that caused alerts. The testimony did not even break down those alerts by gender to quantify how many number of those were women, or even who was menstruating on the day of visitation. And beyond that, how many of them had on a tampon or menstrual cup. The representative of the department even said this has not been a really big problem, and only recounted one issue that had occurred. Mr. Speaker, I would like to know how many of the incidents of drugs being smuggled into our facilities were by women in their vaginal canal. Mr. Speaker, I also want to know what products would the state be purchasing. Would they at least spring for the soft cotton with smooth applicator, or go for the cheaper option with a rough applicator? And Mr. Speaker, I assure you that anyone that is uncomfortable with this conversation, a rough applicator is even more uncomfortable. It is really telling that this bill is hailed as progress because of the alternatively more inhumane treatment of visitors that they are experiencing sometimes at the current policy. And I agree that something different needs to happen with the current policy, like get rid of it, but a yes to this substitute goes from bad department policy to bad policy in code. Mr. Speaker, I offer that it is another part of the testimony that gets at the real heart of this conversation, and that is when the representative said that people in jail want drugs. That is where I offer we need to spend our time and attention. We can choose to address the underlying substance abuse disorders of some of the inmates and not put the burden of drug use prevention on all of the menstruating women who are choosing to visit their loved one, especially when scan and canine alerts are at 0.47% of all visitors. While I respect the genesis of the bill, I urge the body to reject the substitute as it does not uphold the intent of non-discriminatory policy, and it surely does not treat these women with dignity and respect that they deserve. I urge the body to then support the underlying bill while rejecting the substitute to give the Secretary a chance to make this policy better while we let him know that we are watching.
Shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. No. Committee substitutes rejected.
Mr. Speaker, may I have ayes and nays on that, please?
You can call for a division.
I would like a division, please, because I'd like to have a vote on a substitute that was amended by a bipartisan group that actually worked on this bill.
Delegate Keem has asked for a division. All those in favor of the substitute, raise your right hand. All those opposed, same sign.
You're going to hear something.
I know. How much you can.
The motion fails.
Mr. Speaker,
Delegate Gilbert.
I move that the bill go by for the day.
Delegate Gilbert moves the bill go by for the day. All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. That bill goes by for the day.